All right, so welcome to Breeden Success Podcast. I'm the host, RJ Breeden, with my co-host, Liam Beard. Our guest speaker today is Eric Rittmeyer, famous author of The Emotional Marine. So, Eric, thanks for coming out today, man. Really appreciate it.
I love the famous part. I don't normally get that. That's a cool thing, man. I like it here already. It's tough.
Well, look, if you're not famous yet, you're going to be famous after this.
I love it. I'll take it.
So, thanks for obviously coming out today. And tell us a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, so I think it's a pretty simple story, actually. I'd like to think I had something exciting in my life, but I really don't. I feel like everybody else, I went through high school not knowing what I wanted to do. I was a self-proclaimed not smart person, mainly because I didn't apply myself. Didn't know what I was going to do, didn't want to sit around and do nothing, so I did like any other person would do that doesn't have a partially functioning frontal lobe. We joined the Marine Corps, so why not? Let's join the Marine Corps. So I joined the Marine Corps, did 4 years in the Corps, and it was the absolute best thing I ever did. Just taught me lots of stuff I didn't know about myself. Taught me just these life skills that ended up being very, very helpful. Got out of the Marine Corps, jumped in the mortgage business. I did that for 20 plus years. As a matter of fact, effective January 1 this year, I did not renew my license. First time, it felt a little uneasy. I think my hair fell out. But so I basically, for the first time, I decided not to do mortgages. I did conventional mortgages, then reverse mortgages. And then now I just got totally done with that. And then for the last 15 years, I've been speaking on mental toughness and emotional intelligence. I train sales teams. I call it psychological performance training. It's basically getting people to understand they're responsible for their actions. I deal with lots of sales teams. Just so happens that market's fairly delusional in their abilities. They think they're much better than what they are, so I kind of beat them over the head with a little bit. So I do a lot of that, which I love. I do a lot of TV, a lot of television revolve around my book, The Emotional Marine, which I'm famous for. Love doing that. It's just about connecting. It's about connecting with people on an emotional level, getting people to instantly like you, understanding where they're coming from, connecting with them from that depth that a lot of people don't even take any time trying to do. And then it morphed into now working with LifeMed, which is a concierge wellness center. So we do the hormone replacement therapies. We're concierge wellness, so it's pretty much everything wellness, very proactive type stuff. We normally deal with healthy people that are coming because they want to feel better. So I have a wide array of different things that I've done, but all in all, it's been a pretty smooth ride for me. I have 2 daughters. They're amazing. They keep me going. They're 18 and 20. They're amazing. And aside from that, if you say jump, I say how high. I just love it. If there's an opportunity to do something, to jump on it. If there's something that you want to try out, like, might as well. I'm a good guinea pig. That's me in a nutshell, man. It's all for the ride.
Yeah, absolutely. So
I guess just jumping into your LifeMed Institute. I mean, so I know you started in military and everything. So what made you choose the path of LifeMed?
So I started out as a patient at LifeMed actually a few years ago, and I'm very, very close friends with one of the owners. And I was infatuated with what I saw there and the way I felt physically, to the point where I approached one of the owners like, hey, I'd love to join the team. We're a close-knit family there, and I noticed that from my days there as a patient. So I took on the role of director of business development. So I basically go out there. I think I have probably the most amazing job ever. Can't imagine there's a job any better. Wasn't a real stage.
Some days. Yeah. Some days.
So I have an amazing job. I just get the deal. I work with awesome people. Our patients are all happy. Everybody that comes in there wants to be there. I've made tons of friendships, tons of relationships. So I just go around from event to event, talking to people about what we do, how we can help them, how we can give them back their health, how we can revive their relationships that a lot of times are suffering due to some type of internal health condition that they don't even know they have, a lot of times just due to aging. So it's just been a ton. I know people say that, oh, if you love what you do, you're not working. And I always used to laugh at that. But I sincerely love every ounce of what I do with LifeMed especially. It's just a ton of fun for me. I kind of feel guilty about getting paid sometimes. So it's a lot of fun.
Well, I see you at a lot of amazing events. So like, to me, like, you're from a male figure, right? Because there's a lot of women that work at LifeMed and I'm going to use the term beautiful. So, but from a male perspective, you are the face of LifeMed. And when I see you at these events, whether it's the Shogun fight or the boat show, I always see you network marketing and I say just having conversations as you're at the events. And every time I see you, it's a smile on your face and you're having engaging conversations with people. And I think that's a testament to, obviously the mental toughness that you got to have, right? Because it's so hard to be positive 365 days of the year, right?
And that's a good point. And thank you for the compliments, obviously. And I would say when you mentioned that about being happy, it's physically impossible to be happy all the time, right? And I think this is a big issue. And with my mental toughness training, with a lot of the television I do on emotional intelligence, I think one of the biggest misconceptions about that is, as soon as somebody knows I'm a mental toughness expert, and if they're going to hire me to come talk to their sales team, they automatically think that I'm going to try to train their people on how to be robots. And I try to get them to understand that that is not what mental toughness is. They know I'm in the Marine Corps. They know that and they're like, oh, you're going to come in here and you're going to yell and scream and make everybody do push-ups and all that. I'm like, that's not mental toughness. If you want to define mental toughness in 2 words, it's emotional control. So it's really the exact opposite of what you think it would be. When you think of mental toughness, you think of shut off the emotion, turn it off, shelf it, be done with it until you're out of the situation, then turn it back on and start using emotion again. Totally false. We're emotional creatures. We're hardwired to feel first and think later. We cannot stop the emotion. The more we try to stop it, the more harmful it is for us. Mental toughness is about acknowledging the emotion, recognizing it, processing it as data that we use with other conventional forms of data, and then understanding why we're feeling. Why are we feeling this way? If we're happy, maybe it's because there's an opportunity in front of us. If we're fearful, maybe it's because there's something that might cause us danger. Every single emotion gives us a reason. It gives us a signal. We have to acknowledge the signal. Instead of trying to turn it off, learn to recognize it, then find healthy ways to convey it and healthy ways to put it out there so we don't make bad decisions.
Yeah, that's deep right there. Like when you really think about that, and the reason why I say that is, I've been sober for almost 10 years now. And one of the things how I dealt with things like that, or fear or emotion, I would drink, right? That was how I dealt with it. And it was almost like by drinking, I blocked it out, but the following day it was still there. So like, that's the mental toughness that I think you have to learn to adjust and adapt to situations.
So in the Marine Corps, we call this improvise, adapt, and overcome. This is how we handle issues. Before I say that, though, 10 years is pretty awesome stuff.
Yeah, it's cool, right? But like, it's every day, man. I want to drink right here, sitting with you right now,
It goes away.
Yeah, and people don't understand that.
They don't.
Yeah.
Yes, hats off.
Yeah.
So in the Marine Corps, it's improvise, adapt, and overcome. This is what we learn, right? So there's an issue. There's a wall that's 10 feet high. Improvise, adapt, and overcome. I don't care. Go through it, go over it, do whatever you got to do. When you look at males and females, it's funny because now being in the medical world, which I'd never had any medical training at all, like I can hardly read or write, much less learn medical concepts, but working in a facility like LifeMed and having access to all these insanely smart people. I mean, our providers, our nurses, every person in that joint, our front desk staff is so insanely knowledgeable on the topic. So the cool thing is I really love to digest and understand to get to the core of a lot of different issues. And we look at men and women, the point you bring up, and look at men and women, how they respond to stressful situations, we have different coping mechanisms, right? This is just how we do it as part of our makeup internally, our biological makeup. And the one main thing I've learned is with men, a lot of times when we're hit with these difficult situations, we use a process called avoidance coping, meaning that if there's a difficult thing in front of us, we try to avoid that with alcohol, with drugs, with partying, whatever we can possibly do to avoid it, as opposed to women, which use what's called tend to befriend. So that's why women, if there's an issue, if there's a problem, they normally tend to befriend, talk to their friends, get it out in the open.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of different studies now that are being done talking about, okay, is this why women live longer than men? Because they're able to address their issues. They're able to articulate their feelings. They don't try to suppress it. They're very open with how they feel. Whereas guys, as men, we're taught to turn it off. We're taught to ignore it. It's there. It's equally there as much as we feel emotion exactly like a woman does. I don't care if you're male or female. Don't pull the whole testosterone estrogen thing on me, because men make estrogen as well. So it's not a matter of that. It's a matter of men are taught to withhold. Men are taught to not talk about their feelings. And that's a major, major issue, especially when it comes to our kids, our boys. They got to be taught that it's okay to feel. Just how you respond to them is what's important.
Mm-hmm. That's deep.
That's deep. Yeah, I mean, that's a great conversation. I guess going to like your stress levels, I mean, we talk about it all the time, like everyone struggles. So kind of, if you want to dig into this a little, like, sounds like you have great job, you're loving everything, but like, what was your struggles? Like, what made you who you are? Like, can you go about talking about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't really talk a whole lot about this, but I do like so, like as a kid, obviously keep very high level as a kid. And my dad left when I was a little kid. I was like 5 years old. He rolled out. So I had my mom in my life and I grew up with my grandparents. My grandfather was like my father. And that I believe from a male standpoint, from a boy's standpoint, especially, boys really need that male role model. Not that girls don't need it, they do as well. But for boys, I feel like they really need the male role model. And there's just what I refer to as a major dad deficit right now, right? They're just, the dads are lacking in the household. So my grandfather stepped up to the plate for me. And I had a wonderful, everything with my life was wonderful. And it was great. It was good. I was married for a very long time, 19 years. RJ and I, we talked briefly about this off camera here, but my wife had a ruptured brain aneurysm back in 2013, which she survived. She survived the surgery, but afterwards, there were some complications from the surgery that caused some frontal lobe damage that unfortunately, she decided to leave. So, back in 2016, she decided to leave me and my two daughters. So that part was tough. Like I talked to RJ about, it's like I made it through the vast majority of my life, pretty, little minor, nothing crazy, some bumps in the road, but I feel like my track record was pretty good. I went through a pretty large portion of my life with smooth sailing. Then that happened. And, adversity, we all deal with adversity. We all hit it. And I think as a parent, especially having two children, I think one of the biggest issues and one of the biggest mistakes parents can make, and I understand why we do this, but I think one of the main mistakes we make is we constantly try to shelter our children from pain, physical pain, mental pain, emotional pain. We're instinctually, I believe, like it's what we want to do. We don't want our kid. We don't want to see them hurt. But the realistic thing is that they're going to deal with it in the future. So the only way they're going to learn their coping mechanisms is to deal with it. And when they're younger, when they deal with it, we're able to then coach them through it and give them the tips and the tools and the life experiences that can walk them through. But I'd hear a lot about this in a lot of the shows I would do. And a lot of people would say, Eric, especially with COVID, a lot of media in COVID, and it's Eric, we're all kind of in the same boat, right? And I'd be like, well, no, we're actually not in the same boat. I would say we're all in the same storm, but the size of the boat we're on depending on the level of our mental capacity leading up to COVID. So some of us were in a 50-foot yacht that was fully staffed rolling.
Yeah, bro. We're good. Yeah, we're good.
Then people that were in a 5-foot inflatable with a hole in the boat and one oar.
Yeah.
So to say we're all in the same boat was not a good analogy because everybody had their own level of suffering. And for some people, it exacerbated those issues they were having that maybe they were getting by, but they were just teetering and just getting by enough. Then COVID comes along and what was very manageable, take a substance type thing, right? Maybe someone who's drinking. Yep. Maybe they're getting by doing okay. Well, now COVID comes in, you're sitting inside 7 days a week. That tendency you had that was never fully activated due to other life, a job, places you had to go, that's now exacerbated. So I think situations like that, again, the gut instinct is to shield, to protect, especially as guys, to protect our children. What we really have to do is allow them to go through the storm and recognize and show them that on the other side of the storm, there's going to be green grass. There's going to be a whole bunch of food on the other side that brainstorm provided for you. It's a tough lesson, but they have to go through it.
Yeah. And at the time when you experienced this, this change in life, you said your daughters were 11 and 13.
Yep.
Now they don't, now they got you. And with that being said, like there's no female role model there. So now you're the dad and the mom, and you're taking over two roles. And that's probably a challenging time in a young lady's life because there's so much change going on, right? And, after speaking off camera, like, your daughters are doing great, so kudos to you. And like weathering that storm, that becomes a real challenge, and continuing to evolve in life, right? Because you still got to work all the time. You still got to pay the bills all the time, a dual income family is now a solo income family. And that's what I think people don't see, right? Everybody has, the guy at the supermarket has his own battles, and I see people all the time, they get mad when somebody cuts them off or rushing through the grocery store, or, I just I'm to a point in my life, I'm 39 years old, and I just just take things, I just step back and I look and I'm like, man, I'm not trying to analyze your life, but everybody has their own story. And it's really important, I think, for us as a whole in the world, is like, you don't know what that guy's going through. You don't know what that woman's going through. They could have been at the doctor's today and got a bad diagnosis on something. You
bring up lots of points there. One of the things I'd hit on, RJ, when you talk from the kid standpoint, I would say I think the concept is fairly simple. Kids need love, attention, affection, and direction. This is what kids need, okay? preferably from a biological parent, irrespective of male, female, mother, father, grandmother, that doesn't matter in my mind. The sex of the person provided that potential affection direction is irrelevant. What's important is they get that from someone, a parent, a neighbor, a football coach, a mailman. I don't care who it is. With that at the core of it, I think kids really kind of, regardless of the household they grow up in, assuming it's a safe, physically safe household, I feel like mentally they end up okay because they know there's somebody there whose world revolves around them. Leading to the second part that you said about other people not knowing what they're going through. There's actually a story about a suicide, someone who committed suicide multiple times, and he survived. He was a Golden Gate Bridge survivor. And I'll give you the high level, very quick high level, because his story did change the way that I communicate with other people. And I am always very cautious and aware when I meet people as far as, hey, what's going on? Having a good day? All right, talk to you later. I call them, hey, how are you relationships? I got a million.
Yeah, 100%.
Just like you. Sure.
You're like, what's up, man? We're friends on Facebook.
Very small. Like, why do you say hi to me? What's going on? I even know your friends.
Yeah.
So anyway, this guy's he tells a story, and it's totally, and it still gets me emotional. It's just such an intense, crazy, nutso story. So Kevin, he's attempted suicide multiple times, unsuccessfully, obviously. He's mid-late 20s. And one day he decides, like, hey, this is it. Like, I'm done. I can't take it anymore. I'm finished. I'm taking my own life. So he writes his letter. He goes into his dad. He's living with his parents to the point he goes into his dad's room, and he tells a story about how he's trying to convince his dad. His dad knew something was wrong. And he's trying to convince his dad, like, it's okay. I'm cool. Just let me go. I want to go and leave him, go and hang out, whatever. So he said, finally convinces his dad to let him go. So suicide note written, walks up to the bus stop to hop on the bus to basically take his life. As he's walking the bus, he's bawling his eyes out, just crying uncontrollably, bawling his eyes out. Gets on the bus. He says, everybody's looking at him. Nobody says a word to him. He's on the bus, losing his mind. Two guys hop on the bus on the side of him. They're like, dude, what's wrong with you? What's your problem? Look at this guy. Nobody pays an ounce of attention to him. Gets off the bus, goes walking up to the top of the bridge. As he's walking up, people walking by, nobody says a word to him. It says, finally, there's this group of women, whatever, 5 girls in the group. And the one girl was walking towards them. And he's like, oh my goodness, fine. Somebody's gonna talk to me. So he said, she walks up and she's like, excuse me, like an accent, like, excuse me, so can you take a picture from me and my friends? So he takes this picture and he's like, this is it. Like, nobody cares about me. So he says, and this is where it gets like, this is like crazy. This boggles my brain. He said, what I'm getting ready to tell you is what every single suicide attempted person who survived has said the same story. He said, as I'm running towards the railing to take my life, the millisecond my fingers left the railing, I instantly regretted my decision. And as I fell to what I thought was my death, all I could think about was nobody's going to know that I didn't want to die. So he hits the water, a boat's there, he survives. He's like one of like literally, I think 19 people who survived that suicide attempt. He goes to the hospital, he's in the bed, his dad comes in, his dad's all emotional, they're both bawling their eyes out, they're both apologizing to each other. And the whole story and what Kevin says is, all I wanted was somebody to ask me, are you okay? That's all I wanted. So when I approach every single person now, not that I assume that anybody's suicidal, but when I approach every single person, I approach them assuming that me asking, hey, what's up, everything cool? I assume that that is literally going to make or break their day, their week, their month. Maybe it's going to save their life. If every single living, breathing human would just take a half a millisecond to at least acknowledge other people, to understand that at the core, we're all humans, we're all feeling creatures. We just want someone who cares about us. If everybody did that, dude, the world's a million times better instead of instantly assuming the worst intentions of people. So that story really, really hits with me, especially when it's insane to think like this person who was trying to take his own life didn't really want to take his own life. So it makes you wonder when you especially talk about suicide. I do a lot of media on this. These are people that normally are very, very happy people that just don't have any other outlet. So it's a really sensitive topic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, yeah. At the end of the day, like from a leadership standpoint, and you've dealt with it, obviously being in the Marines, and when you're responsible for other people, I put their well-being over top mine. I worry about them more than I worry about myself, because I know, and I'm going to use the word mentally tough, that I can overcome something. And maybe I can't, right? But I think mentally that I can overcome things in life. But, I care about the agents on my team. I care about the other agent in the transaction I deal with. I care about the guy at the gas station that I go in and I acknowledge every day, Mr. Joe, and I ask him how his day is going. And he might ramble for 2 minutes or 20. I don't know, hopefully 2 some days. But, at the end of the day, like I really try to connect with people on a level of caring, because it's really not that hard to just show a little bit of effort or a little bit of caring, whether it's in your marriage, your friendships, your business relationships. It doesn't take that much effort out of your day to ask somebody how they're doing, or the receptionist that you walk by every day at LifeMed. Like, you have to acknowledge these people. And we live in a world where we're on our phones, we're looking down at our phones, we're text messaging, and we walk past these people and I don't want to say we forget to engage them, or maybe we take them for granted,
I'll take that a notch further, RJ, and I'll say not only the people at the grocery store, but how about the people that we love? How about the people that are sitting right next to us and sleeping in bed next to us? How much do they get shuffled under the rug? You know what I mean? I talk a lot about this. I wrote a paper on this. I call it emotional capacity. And my whole hypothesis with this is relationships fail for multiple reasons. But I feel like at the core of it is it's this emotional capacity. We all have a capacity for emotional fulfillment. Okay, so if I'm in a relationship with someone, if my emotional needs are, let's say, a 3 and theirs is a 10, once I have my 3, once I'm good, once I'm getting my emotional needs, I'm good to go. It's like a swimming pool, an in-ground swimming pool. If it rains 3 feet of rain, once it gets to the top, it just rolls over. It becomes a solid sheet at that point. So in a lot of relationships, I feel like there's one person who's emotionally fulfilled. The other person is not emotionally fulfilled. And they're like, they need more. They're starving for it. And when you look at a lot of relationships, a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times people that are in intimate relationships, let's say, they end up directing more mental energy towards people that really have zero impact on their well-being, on their household, on their family, than the person sitting right next to them. And it drives me insane because I felt like I could, if there was a conversation that could be had where they could say like, hey, I'm good to go emotionally. How are you? I'm not good emotionally. If there's a conversation that could be had, and who knows, maybe there's no way for that person that's a 3 to increase to a 7. Or maybe there's no way that person who needs a 10 can back that down to a 6 or 7. But at least if you're able to articulate why you're upset or what the problem is, maybe we save relationships. I agree with the people in the grocery store. I agree with people everywhere. I totally agree. Again, hey, how are you? Right? I talk about 4 quarters versus 100 pennies in relationships, right? The 100 pennies with, hey, how are yous? The 4 quarters are the, dude, how's all do? I got an issue. Like, I need some help with you know. They're the people that you call on birthday. You don't send a stupid message on Facebook. They're the people that you invite to the birthday parties. These are the 4 quarters versus 100 pennies. A lot of times we put so much emphasis on these silly, fabricated Facebook, social media people that mean nothing to us. We put so much mental energy towards trying to make them think that we're this and we're that. And the person sitting right next to us is starving. Pay no attention to it. One of the reasons why I feel like relationships fall apart.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. And I mean, you see it all the time, right? On Facebook, these people posting vacations and weddings and pictures and shit like that. And when you a deeper dive into it, I'm like, man, I don't know. I just
we're a nation of approval addicts. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Approval addicts. So this is the issue. I mean, you look at any issue we deal with that we just don't like to be disapproved of. We haven't been taught how to handle opposing points of view. So we go through life on these I call them dopamine machines on the cell phones, especially for our kids. I call it the swipe right society, right? I mean, you need a car, swipe right. You need a date, swipe right. You hungry? Swipe right. So the mindset is instant gratification. The issue I feel is not to sound like an old head talking about kids in this generation, but the issue I find is the generation has become so dependent upon the instant gratification swiping right that when they try to apply that towards other parts of their life where swipe right does not apply, they don't understand. So it's hard for them to grasp that a relationship takes work. You don't swipe right on a relationship, right? My days it was layaway. You went to the store, you want something like Kmart, you go to Blue Light Special, I want that. You put a layaway, you come back every couple weeks, put some money into it, right?
Agreed, 100%. I remember shopping with my mom, and that's what Christmas was. Layaway this, layaway that, layaway this.
So they try to apply the mindset of, I want it, therefore I need it right now, as opposed to there are things in life that do require hard work. There are things in life that when you put effort into them, what you get from it is very satisfying. Okay, people have to understand, the older I get, I'll be 49. I'm starting to realize there are lots of things in my life that provide a significant amount of happiness to me that 5 years ago, I'd have been like, for real? Sitting in front of a fire is going to make you happy? wacko. Going for a walk's going to be cool. Watching your kids interact with other people and seeing them be kind humans, watching them hold the door and say thank you, being proud of them when they score a goal, watching them get into the college they want to get into. These are all things that you just don't even recognize. The older you get, the more your mind matures, stuff becomes more important. So my fear is that people can't, there's no depth. Their relationships are they're pennies, they're 100 pennies, no quarters. They have to grasp the concept of things worth having are going to take hard work and there's going to be a difficult road. Let's walk down the road, teach them the mechanisms now, so when they face it further on down the road, they know how to handle it.
So let's get on the topic of mental energy, because I think that has a lot to do with successful people. And I think we all have it in us, but it's the emotional energy that we delegate to our brain. It would be the statement, right? Or what are we allow our brain to think that allows a lot of people to be successful? And you're the expert, so let's roll with it.
I'll give you my quote, okay? Remember, I'm an old head, so I have quotes for everything. What the mind attends to, it considers. What the mind does not attend to, it dismisses. What the mind attends to continually, it believes. And what the mind believes, it eventually does. So the whole concept behind that quote is wherever you put mental energy is what you're going to get. This is the issue with a lot of things that we, New Year's resolutions, let's call it this time of year, right? Why is it that 90% of New Year's resolutions fail before the end of the first month of the year? I'll tell you why. It's because we set these goals regardless. Doesn't matter what it is. Let's assume it's weight loss. Everybody wants to lose weight at the beginning of the year, right? Vast majority of people. Why is it that people have such a hard time sticking to any program that would enable them to lose weight? Well, here's why. I personally feel like we set the goals, then we rely on motivation to get to these goals, right? So if we wake up in the morning, we feel good, great, we stick to our diet. We wake up in the morning, we feel bad, 18-inch pizza, tub of ice cream. How you doing? It's what we do, right? So there's just there's nothing that drives us.
Don't judge me. Don't judge me.
I'm feeling like nasty. Oh my God, I want something out of something. I mean, talking for
yeah.
So we still the issue is we saw anything that drives us, and this is what it all boils down to. And this is what I feel like with most people, if they could develop their why. If you guys ever read the book The Secret, if you understand the book behind the concept behind The Secret, what they say is your thoughts lead to results. So the easiest, highest level would be if you're driving to a parking lot, there's no spots, find a parking spot, There's a parking spot. I thought about it, therefore it happened. That's the whole concept behind The Secret. Save your money, not to buy the book. There's one thing missing in there. I talk about this in my mental toughness training. I talk about this. It's not that thoughts lead to results. It doesn't just happen instantaneously. The one step that's missing in the middle there, thoughts lead to actions and actions lead to results. What ends up happening is when we think something enough, we subconsciously create the actions to get whatever it is that we want. Vision boards, you guys probably heard of vision boards.
100%.
Concept of reticular activating system. It's a bundle of neurons that sits on the stem of your brain. Its job is to filter out information you're looking for. So if I said, Liam, ever seen a red Cadillac Escalade? Nope, never saw one. You walk out front and see 5 of them. That particular activity happens all the time. All those in the times where you're talking about something, your cell phone lights up, that's Siri, you're listening to you, and you get you like 8 phone calls in. Like, if you're talking about flip-flops, so reticular activating systems are a very real thing. Well, what happens is most people, they set the goals and they put a little mental energy here, a little bit there, as opposed to that laser focused, developing that strong emotionally charged why. I talk a lot about this. What is it that charges you? Find what it is that charges you, verbalize it, put it in writing, picture form, verbally written down, whatever. Live it, breathe it, say it. Think about it 24/7 to the point that you bypass front of brain, because front of brain is what stops anything getting in the back of brain. That's the side of our brain that says, you're not good enough. You can't do that. You're not smart enough. Back of brain doesn't know past tense, current tense, can do, can't do, could, would, shouldn't. Back of brain doesn't know. All back of brain knows is find a way to make it happen. Most people allow thoughts to make it their way into the back of the brain. They're not positive thoughts. So when those negative thoughts go back of the brain, guess what reticular activating system does? Find a way to make it happen. That's why people that want money are constantly searching and never get it. That's why people that are looking for love, they never get it. I'm always unhappy. I'm never happy. Well, if you make yourself think that, you're never going to be happy. So the concept of mental energy strictly means you put energy into where you want. If you don't want energy there, don't put it there, because the minute you put it in the stratosphere, it's going to come back to you.
I'm motivated after this.
Yeah. I mean, you brought up many good points. I mean, all about motivation and what motivates you. I guess kind of a closing topic or something that we can touch on is we get motivated by certain things. Can't be one particular thing, but what kind of motivates you every day?
For me personally, I would say my children, obviously. And I think if you ever get anybody that I coach, anybody that I train, I think that the core of it, it does boil down to family. And one of the other misconceptions I see a lot of, Lynn, that's a good question. I think a lot of the people I work with, especially a lot of real estate people, and when I go start coaching them, I use a process called facilitated introspection. This is a process where we look internally to find what truly drives you, what's important to you. It's a process, it's an introspective process that's facilitated by someone like me. And the one thing that I hear most often is, people say, I want to make more money. And I'll say, okay, that's okay. Everybody kind of says that. And I said, all right, so if I was coaching you, RJ, and you told me that, I'd say, you know what? I bet you making money probably isn't one of the top 3 most important things to you. And you say, well, yes, it absolutely is. So, okay, I'll give you an example of this. I'll give you $1 million today, but you have to die tomorrow. What are you going to take? That tells me that health is more important than money. I'll give you $1 million today, but you have to live deathly ill for the rest of your life. That tells me the health is more important than money. I'll give you $1 million today, but your mom has to die tomorrow. That tells me that relationships are more important than money. So don't chase after the money. Chase after all those other things that are truly important to you. The money follows. So people will set these goals. They have these things they think that charge them. Meanwhile, they're superficial things that have no meaning about anything. And when it fizzles out, when the going gets tough, they quit because there's nothing at the core of it. As opposed to focusing on the health, on the relationships, on all these other things. And all of a sudden now you focus on that stuff, you find a way to make it happen. When the why is strong enough, the how's easy. The problem is nobody has the why. That's the issue. What close was that?
Yeah. I mean, look, and I'll follow up to that. Early on in my career, it was about the money. Like it was. And then I go after it and I get it. And then you get like a big check and then another big check. And soon like the big checks stack up and the small checks stack up to become big checks or big amounts. And then I took a step back and I'm like, man, like I want to be a father. I want to like spend the weekend with my kids. I want to be in, I say, a healthy state of life. So for me, as I've grown or as I've become more of an adult, let's say, my whys have shifted. And I think there's no like right why in life. And it's okay to change your whys on why you're doing something. But really, just like you said, man, you hit the nail on the head. Like if I gave you $1 million tomorrow, but you had to sacrifice something, what's more important to you, the sacrifice or the money, and I think a lot of people in the real estate industry put the money before their clients' needs,
And the other cool thing about that too, I feel like is from a leadership standpoint, you talked about this earlier on, I didn't talk too much about that, but from a leadership standpoint, it is making that emotional connection with the people that we lead. And it's understanding that these are emotional creatures that we're dealing with. Mm-hmm. And the way you address a scenario is different with you than with you. From a leadership standpoint, it's the ability to be self-aware enough to understand that something different drives every single person. An event happens right here in this room. Every single one of us will have a different emotional response to that thing happening. Mm-hmm. I might think yours is crazy. I might think yours is nuts, but here's the bottom line. We're all entitled to our own emotional responses. No matter how ill-calibrated I might think yours is, you're entitled to it. Going back to relationships, instead of telling somebody you shouldn't feel that way, just why would you feel that way? Who am I to tell you shouldn't feel that way? If you want to cry when the water falls on the floor, you're entitled to that. Mm-hmm. How did we not know that you were abused as a child and your dad kicked over the water bottle and that's what makes you know? I know.
That's your trigger event.
That's your trigger event. So instead of, if people cannot connect from an emotional level, if we're not listening with the intent to understand, if we're only listening with the intent to reply, which is the bulk of conversations, I'm only listening long enough to formulate my response to what you're saying, right, to the point where I totally miss 80% of what's being said. If I truly listen with the intent to understand, maybe I learned something that drives you. Maybe I learned something that motivates you. I use an acronym called FROM: family, recreation, occupation, motivation. When you meet with somebody, find something you have in common with them as it relates to one of those 4 categories, then learn more about that person. Truly try to understand that person. Must be authentic, must be sincere. Connect with person. Find some place that maybe, 90% of what you do is say and believe and think is totally polar opposite of me, but I guarantee there's probably a couple percent we can agree on. And the things we agree on are probably at the core of what really would unite us, as opposed to saying that I don't like you because you have a different thought. It's called reactive devaluation. Now officially finished.
Well, look, Eric, Thank you, obviously, for being a guest today on Breeden Success Podcast. Eric Rittmeyer, ladies and gentlemen, the emotional Marine, famous author, and let everybody know how we can find a copy of your book.
I appreciate that, RJ. Thank you. Yeah, so the book is on Amazon. It's also my website, emotionalmarine.com. If you buy it from emotionalmarine.com, I'll sign it, depreciate it by 30%. You can find me over Google. I'm on Instagram and stuff. I do a lot of TV. Please do follow me on Instagram. Also out of LifeMed for any of your listeners, anybody's looking to feel better. You get their hormone levels checked. It's critically important. Get a nutrient IV, which is awesome. Come out for the facial contouring, lip fillers, Botox, all that good stuff, which I do not partake.
You look good, man. You look good.
You guys like everything skin? I don't. I know I don't. Lung injury repair, PRP, rich plasma, all that good stuff. So appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah, thank you for being a guest, and we look forward to seeing you around in 2023.
You know where to find me?
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Leo.